So I'm just up at this beautiful apiary to start putting clearer boards on. Every year we use clearer boards in the summer because the problem is the bees are so on the robbing spree. You have to use everything you can to make life as easy as for you. Now, we talked a little bit about robbing in my previous video, and obviously the whole idea is you find a way to get the bees out of your supers as easy as possible. And most of the time we use these clearer boards. Okay, so this is our clearer board. It's a normal, well, it's not really a normal crown board, but it's a kind of crown board, which is the thickness, with a hole on the upper side, which is where the bees go through. So you put your supers on this side, and this is the side of the brood nest. And what happens is this lozenge we have on here enables the bees to come out of here and here. So other people, we call them clearer boards. In France, they call them chasse à baies, in other words, chasing the bees or hunting the bees out, chasse à baies. There's different kinds. Other people have ones with little cones, and I know Ian Stepler, to mention one, he has one with, if you look at their system, they have a twin line going down the middle, down here, and there's little cones that the bees go into. They're actually thicker than this. The bees go into the cones and can't get out the other way, and they work really well as well. But at the end of the day, you use what works for you. There's loads of older methods as well of different types of clearer board. I've seen some where they make 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they have the bees go around the outside and then come out the holes here. It just depends what works for you. So these will all go on, and I'll put these supers back on top. It is a lot of work taking the supers off, but whatever happens, you have to take the supers off to do it. But if you do it all at once and you're organized, you can do the whole lot fairly quickly. I'm going to be working here till this is done today, so I'll do some time lapse to show me working down the line. This apiary was requeened and restocked, I should say, about mid-May with nukes. And some of them were a little bit compressed when they went in, so it took a little bit of while for the bees to get going in the dearth we had. So I wasn't expecting a huge amount of honey from this apiary, but I still got some. You can see some of the actual the 2 and 3 stacks there of honey supers are actually the ones that were overwintered bees, so they had a little bit more and a little bit more bees to go and forage. Overall, the honey flow looks pretty kind of average for the year. I won't know until it's harvested. A lot of people ask me, how are you doing? How are you doing? I honestly don't know. Till it's in the barrel, I can't say. I don't tempt fate. I just, it is what it is. And when it's done, it'll be what it is in the barrel. So I'm not expecting that. But one thing to really comment on this year that's really positive is the lack of swarming. Obviously, areas where you've requeened and had new queens gone into new boxes and stuff like that, you are going to get less swarming because the queen is less inclined to swarm in her first year. But what we found this year is, even in the summer flow, because the weather went off, there was queen cells in maybe 20-30% of my hives, and I noticed they were all torn down after the second week of the flow. Whether that was because the weather was duff, I don't know, or whether it was because the queens decided that they didn't want to swarm and they didn't feel conditions were good enough. I just couldn't say. But it helped me a huge amount, because even though we haven't got a lot of honey, like a massive year, one thing you can say is all the boxes I've seen are queen right, which is fantastic. Because this time last year, as well as having winter losses last winter, going into the autumn before, I was already finding colonies that hadn't requeened. And obviously I requeen a lot of them, but in the usual big picture of things, a lot of colonies always do requeen themselves through supersedure, and that wasn't happening very well last year. This year it seems to have happened pretty well. So let's get on with this this job today. When I've done this this is my first one I'm doing today, and the reason is because I wanted to mention this is like the track I come in on. So I've got to get in from there and drive down here, and you can see this is obviously grassy scrub, and this is actually a field they use for hay. So I've got this end for me here. But what I'm saying is, because I know the weather's thundery and hot, it only needs a couple of heavy downpours of rain, and it makes my job here getting out of this field a nightmare. So in the big picture of things, it doesn't really matter, because once the water does sink down a bit, it'll dry out enough to make the surface. But when you've got, my point is, when you've got an apiary where you know it can be affected by the weather, get in, do that one first and get that honey out of there, and then at least you've got no heavy movement to make, and you can just do your treatments and all that straight away after. So to give you some idea of time frame as well, I'll put these clearer boards on today. It means by tomorrow evening the bees will be out, and they can then, so 24, 36 hours, or the following morning. So that'll be, it's Monday now, so they're going on this afternoon, 2 o'clock. I could take them off tomorrow afternoon, or even the following morning. So it could be Wednesday morning. But the problem you have then is you've got an awful lot of clearer boards on a lot of hives, and you've taken the honey off, and you've got to go back. You can stack the honey at the workshop because it's not going to crystallize if it goes cool, which is fine. But then you've got to go back in and start taking clearer boards off and doing your treatments, because you need more clearer boards, because I haven't got enough clearer boards to leave one on every hive, because that would be a ridiculous amount of money. So you've got to kind of work it like that. And it's the same old thing. It's taking boxes from A to B and moving them back again, sorting them out, conditioning them, moving on the next one, and so on and so on. And it's just a process I'll do. This should take me about a week. I'll do a few late nights in the workshop extracting, that's for sure, I hope. And then I'll be moving forward, you know. So let's get on with this. I'll put you on a bit of time lapse, and you could see me working through the stack. So that's all done. You'll notice this one here, that hive now has 4 supers on, and the one next door had 2. So I don't know what's happened when I made a swarm from it. In other words, cut it and made it, went down to 7 frames and took 3 out to make my nuke, that it didn't requeen. There's hardly any bees in it. So what I did was I then put the supers that were on top of it next door, because there's hardly any bees in it, and it's that time when it's critical that if it collapses, it could go in a day or 2 days, because those bees are all going to be pissed, because all along there's these bee escapes there, you can see. So all these are now isolated. They're all on their own. They're basically pods of honey, items of honey waiting to be robbed if they can be robbed out. Then what I did was I took a frame of brood from this one next door here, because there's like loads of brood in every colony still, which is surprising, and put it into this one. And this one I've also put I'm going to put now a foam on the front to reduce the entrance down, because I don't want it to be robbed out. If I can just get a frame of brood to hatch. So I went through this one, I found a frame of emerging brood. There's hardly any bees in this box, but there's probably just enough. And because it's going to be really warm the next 4 days, I'm quietly confident there'll just be enough to get this one going again. And then I can give it another frame of brood when I come in a week with a queen. I've got some queens at home I can bring from this, from a few of my mini plus. It's worth redoing. I'd rather get a queen into a nuke this week, or into a hive, and just get it queen right, and then it'll get away before the winter. There's still time if you've got a mated queen. But I can give it bees. Every single other colony in this whole apiary is good. And I can use some of those resources to boost that one to get that up and running. I just don't really like taking empty hives back home. I always avoid it if possible. Not the fact that I'm not being realistic. There's still time to get that colony strong. It's got everything in it. It's full of resources. So you clamp the front down. You just make a tiny entrance on it so that the bees that are in there feel secure. There's less chance of whatever's left being robbed out, and it should recover very quickly. And I'll put a queen in, and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. You're back to having a colony for next year. Just through a few simple things this year. Done. Okay, I'm busy. I didn't really want to do it now, but you just do it, and you come back and go, oh, I'm really glad I added that frame of brood, because it's hatched now. And it was a double-sided brood, actually just about to hatch. There was some bees just hatching in one part of the center. So you know that within 4 days, that frame's going to hatch, basically. And that will boost that colony, and then I'll be able to get a queen in it, and away it will go. It's just what I try and do. It's not always possible. Sometimes you just have to say, well, such is life, you know, and you take the hive back and you clean it out. I go around now with this. I got some orange sticky tape. It's nice and thick, but the great thing about this is it doesn't actually stick that hard. It kind of easy to peel off. It's a really good piece of kit. You don't often need any in an apiary, but if you do need it, you might find one hive that needs a band all the way around it for some reason. And if you don't do that, you end up with the supers empty. And there's nothing more disgruntling and annoying and something to evolve lots and lots of expletives when you turn up to harvest that honey that you've looked after all summer, that you've got those bees just right. You crack that seal and it's just a hollow sound. Nothing in it at all, absolutely empty. So go around with some good scotch, or go around with something like a sock. I had one hive, as you know, this spring that fell over completely on its side, in fact 2 together, and no problem at all, everything intact because the honey was not separated from the hive. They were so glued together. So I've rectified those and that is done now. So I also had one colony down here, about kind of there, that was queenless. So I had a couple of virgins left from yesterday that I didn't use. They're still okay. So I stuck that in a queen cage. They were pretty aggressive and they gave me a couple of doses of apitherapy, which obviously, good job you didn't hear the sound because I was not happy. They do it through the back when you're sweating. They don't actually get their sting to stay in you, it just goes into your clothing. And that's the problem with these bee suits, is they're fine, but when you sweat, they can sting through you. And that's why you tend to get stung on the cuffs when you're wearing gloves, where it's wet enough to get through. But anyway, I'm now going to carry on this process in all my apiaries in the next week. I'll be doing that, and then I'll be starting extraction on Wednesday, and then coming back here, for example, to take off these bee escapes after the harvest. It's a 3-process thing, really, where you put your bee escapes on, you come back, you harvest the honey, and then you come back again after that. Or you can do it at the same time when you harvest your honey, but you don't really want to do that because you just want to get the honey the hell out of it and get out of it. So on the 3rd trip back is when you take off your bee escapes. If you haven't made nukes already, you can make a nuke if you've got mated queens to go into those nukes, and you can easily do it because you'll clear a board when you pick it up. It's basically a sea of bees, and when you pick this up, the whole board is just full of bees, as you know, because they're all trying to get back up into here. But they can't. So all you do is you take that off, knock it into a nuke, slack, the whole lot comes off. You've got an instant nuke, put in 3 frames of bees and brood, give it a queen, and you're done. That's the best way to make nukes. You're not shaking bees off frames. These bees are also tend to be nurse bees, so it's a really good thing. But this is the kind of reality of it. It was just to show you how you have to put clear boards on. It's hot, the sun's just come out, it's really sticky again, humid. But, you know, it's just the way it is. It is what it is. So we're out really late. I'm just going to show you me pulling this super. I just grabbed the camera. I just wanted to show you before I send the video. And we've got this nice super of 3, set of 3 supers on one hive. That's fairly good for here. So basically, the video I made just before, that was when I was putting the excluders on, was filmed the day before. We're now Tuesday evening. It's had just over 24 hours to get those bee escapes on, and now I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to. I've harvested the rest already. The bees are pretty lively even though it's late in the evening. Let's get this pulled dead quick. So now I rip the cover off like that. There's the honey. Because it's been moved already, it's usually pretty easy to lift off. It just weighs a ton. This is a really good hive. Still a few bees in there, but hey ho, that's the way it goes. Weighs a ton. Oh, this is a really good colony. Supers full. Well, pretty much so. Nice honey in here. That's what I wish all my colonies were like. You know, but they're not, unfortunately, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. But it's not bad, I can't complain. So there you go, that's what you do basically. You go around, you lift it all off. You can see the bees are starting to rob it all out pretty quick, even though it's late in the evening, but that's the last couple. I've got two more to lift off there now. And then I'm off. But see, there's so many bees. They've had to come down that super. There's 3 supers of bees there. Okay, I did take some bees and brood from it, which has helped, but so I'm pushing it really to get all those bees to clear that board. So there's a few left in there, but a lot of these are just robbers that just appeared out of nowhere. But they'll all go. When I drive up there, they'll all disappear. But you see up there, thunderstorms. So that's why I wanted to get this one shifted tonight. Because if it rains overnight, this can be a real pig to get out of, and I don't want to get stuck with this lot and the bees and all that. It just creates merry hell. So this apiary is about average, but a lot of these hives, as I said, were new this year. So they're all with their tops off now. You can see the bee escapes are still on, and I'll come back with the bee escapes probably. If the weather's okay tomorrow, I might come back tomorrow and whip these off, because I've actually got no bee escapes left. I put another 2 apiaries on today. So it's just so much going on. I'm trying to keep up the momentum of getting bee escapes on, but now I've got to go and get some off again once I've started to harvest honey. But what I do is I get my treatments in straight away, feed the colonies, take some syrup with me if there's any that I like, because don't forget you're taking all that honey away, and you've got to be aware that these big buckfast colonies can starve in 2-3 days. They're just dead. So you've got to make provisions for that. You've taken from them all year, you've taken 2 nukes, you've taken 2 honey harvests, and now it's time to pay back that debt a bit, so you give them a bit of sugar until the ivy flow starts, and usually they'll fill themselves up well with the ivy. The majority of colonies are absolutely fine. There's 1 or 2 that are light, because that's just the way they are. So I'm going to say goodbye. Whatever you're doing, be well. I'll be working hard this week. I'll try and do another video in the extraction unit, just like I normally do, but I don't think there's much change in there, other than the fact that I'm doing a heck of a lot more than I've ever done. But be well, be safe, and speak to you again soon. Cheers for now, bye-bye.